Hi, this is Annie Grace, and welcome to this Naked Mind podcast. I'm here with Kelly. Hi, Kelly. How are you?
Hi.
Great. Thanks for being here. So why don't you sort of tell us a little bit about yourself and take us back to kind of where drinking all started for you?
Okay. So drinking started affecting me before I actually began drinking. So my mom's struggled with alcohol for a long time. So when I was a little kid, all growing up, there was a lot of issues, a lot of abuse, physical and emotional abuse from my mom. So that really affected me. And yeah. And so I started experimenting when I was a teenager, probably like 15, 16, like sneaking booze from friends, basement, their parents' collection, stuff like that. And I always, even when I first started drinking, I would always drink too much. I'm a really cheap date. I don't need a lot. And there was a lot of hungover times. So when I went to college, it's kind of the normal college routine of drinking on the weekends and maybe a little bit on the weekdays. But some of my jobs in my 20s, I did a lot of travel and I did a lot of field work and seasonal work in and out of the country. So it was just like there was a lot of partying, and it's just the culture, like you talk about so often, like it's just ingrained in our culture, like, oh, what do you want to drink, and so, but I always had this like idea of basically like cognitive dissonance because I dealt with my mom and because I was so aware that I can't be like that, that's not okay. And so basically the whole time I was like kind of struggling with that. And yeah, I would go for periods of time. Like I was never a daily drinker. I never got to the point where it was like I was drinking, like X amount of units a night or anything. Like, so I was like, well, I don't drink in the morning and I don't drink every day. Sometimes the days that I didn't drink, it was because I was kind of hungover and I was like, whoo, I need a day off, and I didn't miss work, like I'm very functional alcoholic, if you will, if I was to call myself that. But so yeah, in and out of school and different things. I work in healthcare now, so I made it through school just fine. Didn't drink much, and I got into I was in a relationship, and that totally crashed and burned. And alcohol was a factor with that. And I didn't realize, looking back, I mean, there's so many red flags. There's so many red flags. There were so many times when, like, I could have 2 or 3 times I could have gotten a DUI. I had been pulled over, and I'm lucky. I'm really lucky. A couple times where, I probably could have died. I don't know. So, but, I better clean myself, clean my act up, and like, I shouldn't drink for a while. Or I ended up in the hospital once, so I didn't drink that whole summer. I was 20, so I was underage. But then, like, you're in college, and it was never like, I never really made the definite choice. There's all these like warning signs and red flags, like that I couldn't handle my booze. I like to drink with the boys too. So, and I'm not the size of a dude, men process alcohol differently than women, and that whole movement of like women are drinking more is really interesting, because I felt like I want to, like, I want to be kind of badass. Like, I've had some jobs, all sorts of different jobs doing things. So I just, that would get me in trouble. And so I'd try to have a 2-to-1 rule. So if the guy I'm with has 2 drinks, I have 1 drink, but sometimes even that's too much for me. So yeah, so I had, a relationship kind of fall apart, and I can't completely blame alcohol, but, and then I got into another relationship, and I found myself getting kind of stressed out and turning to drinking for less socialization and more like because I was lonely, and because I was stressed, trying to be a stepmom and all that stuff, which I love, but I was definitely, it it was getting to a different level of drinking, more hangovers, you know, just like I would stop for a while and then I would start again. And it got to a point where like I was blacking out more. And I've had these incidences where I was actually physically abusive to my partner, who's a male, who's twice as big as me. And like, who am I to do that? And it's like the whole 5% of your brain is conscious, 95% is subconscious is really interesting when I've looked into all of this, because I, you know, I have things in my brain from my childhood. And I'm not trying to point fingers, and I don't think I'm special. Like everybody goes through stuff, you know. I actually just recently forgave my mom for everything, but it's there, you know. And so like I've worked EMDR, I have a therapist, I do trauma therapy, you know, but like the fact that this drink that's so socially acceptable and so poisonous can turn me into like this different person, that I would never do that. Nothing ever happened when I was sober. It was always when I was very impaired. And there were times when I don't remember what happened. I'll never remember, you know. And like he didn't even tell me sometimes what had happened until after he broke up with me. So that was actually 4.5 months ago, and right before Christmas actually. And so things had kind of escalated with my drinking. I was using it for the wrong reasons and blacking out more. And yeah, so I just decided I need to stop drinking. I contacted a friend, and then she had a friend over, and they're both in AA. And I was like, I don't know if I'm an alcoholic or not. It was that whole thing. So I went to some AA meetings, and then read a lot of books. Like you, I like to do a lot of research. So I found out about Smart Recovery. I came across your book, William Porter's book, you know, Craig Beck's book, and all this great information, which has been so helpful, and just really dove into recovery. And now there's a global pandemic. So I guess that kind of is the synopsis of my story. Do you have any questions?
That's great. Thank you for sharing that. I think when you were talking about like the subconscious, especially in relation to, you know, like just getting violent or getting physical with your partner, talk more about that. Did you feel like maybe getting what you want ingrained in you in terms of like, okay, this is what my mom did to get what she wanted, so this is what I need to do to get what I wanted, or this is how my mom dealt with anger, so this is how I need to deal with anger? Or were you approaching it from a totally different angle and I'm just
no, I mean, you're being very rational about it, which I love, but it wasn't that rational. It was like I said, it was really impaired. So I think it was just like learned behaviors that were coming out. And normally, like, so I have some kind of codependency issues from growing up that I'm really working through. So in the relationship, I don't think I was getting enough of what I needed, and I could rationalize that with my subconscious brain, but once you drink, that prefrontal cortex is gone after a certain point when you're drinking, you know. So I think it was just like almost like rote memory, because it's in there. And just I dealt with a little bit of anger management. I'm actually a pretty relaxed person, but I do have some anxiety that has gotten way better since I stopped drinking. And I think it's probably just, it was just in there, and there wasn't a lot of thinking about it. It just happened. Right. Yeah, it's hard. It's very, very shameful, very, very ashamed. And that's so hard for me. And just to bring it to light, I don't remember if it was you that was talking about this or where I read it, but like you need to bring, if you have a shameful feeling, to vanquish it or to get rid of it, you just kind of expose it to the light. And just, it's such a vulnerable place to be, but it's really important. That's been really, really powerful for me to just feel that like, whew, okay, it's out there.
Yeah, it's literally one of the hardest things we'll do, because it goes against everything that says like, oh my gosh, if somebody knew this, I won't be loved, I'll be abandoned, I'll be left alone, all of these things. But it truly does eliminate shame. Like vulnerability, like eliminates shame.
Yeah.
It makes it go away. And the more when we feel that dark place, like, oh, don't say this, the more we can say it in the right context, of course, with the right people in the right circumstance, the more that dark place can't survive, which I think is so good, so important.
Yeah, and the more that I shoved it down, because like I got really drunk at my friend's wedding 13 years ago, and I finally just apologized to her, like literally a couple weeks ago. Like all that stuff I was just shoving down, and it makes it worse. It doesn't go away, you know, it kind of festers. So yeah, to just get it out.
Yeah, that's so good. So when you started to think about your drinking in regards to all this, was it very clear, like, okay, no, alcohol is the problem? Or was it kind of like, I don't know if it is or not, but I might try it out? Or how did that journey go?
I mean, I knew that it was an issue, and I had tried the whole moderation thing, like only drink this, only drink at that time, and blah, 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 blah. It's that whole classic rigmarole, and it would always just kind of start escalating again, my drinking. And and it was really scary, because I was like, well, I talked to my friends, and I decided, like, reaching out was pretty huge, because normally I would just not say anything, but that I had no accountability. So then I would just be like, well, I guess I'll have a glass of wine. But so reaching out was really good. And then it was scary, because I was like, I'm never going to drink again. Like, it was like a friend, you know, alcohol was a friend. Like, my partner was gone a lot, and, you know, I was home, and I was stressed with stuff, and it was just always there. He drank, and he drinks, you know, so it was like we would drink together, and I was like, oh my God, I'm never gonna, like, the whole never thing is tough for a lot of people. And so I was like, you know what, I'm just gonna like, so going through the whole breakup too was awful. I'm still dealing with a lot of stuff. And a lot of people would drink during that time, but I wasn't really eating. I wasn't sleeping. I wasn't doing anything. I was working. That was about it. I would drag myself to work. So, yeah, I knew that I had to make a change. And yeah, between the breakup and dealing with the holidays and everything, I just was like, you know, moving out of our house. It felt different. It felt different. I was like, there's other times when I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to do this again. As far as like having an incident or a meltdown when I was drunk, you know, like getting angry or emotional. But this time I was like, I can't do this, you know, like I can't do this to myself, to someone else. Like, I was honest with my mom too. And, you know, she still drinks and kind of struggles with stuff. So just trying to like make a big change. So yeah.
That's so awesome. And you said you'd gone on like a forgiveness journey with her. Was that recent after you stopped, or was that kind of before?
Yep. It was, so I had started that whole thing because it's such a big release with a therapist a couple of years ago, 2.5 years ago, but I wasn't ready. And I just, with all of this going on, like just the clarity of sobriety is pretty incredible. And just all the work that I was doing, I did end up talking to her on the phone because she lives a few hours away, and there just wasn't a good time when my parents were visiting. So that was in, I want to say like mid or late February. So it was like a couple months ago. And that was tough. It's pretty huge, you know. And she just did the best job she could. She had a lot of abuse from her mom, you know, so this intergenerational cycle of abuse, physical abuse, alcohol abuse. I don't know if my grandma drank, but in any case, like I was like, it stops here, you know, like it stops here. I don't have kids of my own. But yeah, it gets scary when you don't remember things and you don't have control over things and you don't know why you're doing things. You don't know who that person is inside of you. It's scary.
Yeah, that's so good. That's amazing. And how did she react?
No, she reacted in the way that my mom reacts, which is kind of a little bit of denial, but she ultimately kind of, broke down, and she recognized, I mean, years ago, I remember her admitting to me that like, and she felt bad that these things had happened, and she was drunk, most of the time, and so I knew that it was that. And I was the daughter that always knew that she was sneaking wine.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it affected me more than it affected my sister. For sure. I was right there. I was in it. I don't know. It's just my personality. I like to experience things.
It's interesting too, because it is such a hard thing when you are drinking and don't remember everything clearly, to really even take ownership of your actions, or even like understand that they happen, because as far as you're concerned, it just didn't exist in your mind, to whatever degree.
Right.
But
yeah. And then there's also just the stupid things that happen where you're like, oh God, did I really say that? Like all that stuff that's stressful. And just like the day after anxiety stuff, oh, that was getting worse. I noticed that the anxiety from the hangover and everything.
That was just like, it kept being like, reach new lows of like, how bad can I feel? And then drink to make it go away and do it again. It's really interesting how you get so caught up in that cycle. And, for me, at least, the alternative, before I really had any of the knowledge around, what alcohol was or what it does or why my brain wanted to drink in the first place, like the alternative of not drinking just seemed so horrific. It seemed so much worse. It felt like, oh, that would be such a punishment. Or could I even do it? I had a whole aspect of like not even believing that it was possible, because I had tried other times. And so,
yeah, I know. And it's, I felt like I should be enough of an adult and responsible enough and good enough to moderate and to be able to handle my alcohol, and like that people would kind of look down on me if I stopped drinking, like my ex. And I stopped drinking, and he was like, this is a really good thing for you. Like, I respect you more that you're doing this. I'm like, oh my God, I'm such an idiot. I should have done this a while ago. I just felt like kind of ashamed that like I can't handle myself. And yeah, I have a list here of things. Hunger was one of my triggers. Hungry, angry, lonely, tired. I noticed that now. Hunger is one of my triggers. I'm like, ooh, because I would have a drink or beer or whatever on an empty stomach, and like I'm kind of small, so it was just like insta buzz. And I remember one time thinking that, I don't think I mentioned this yet, but if I would get like a little bit of buzz, it would take that anxiety edge off. And I was like, God, I wish I could just drink a little bit all the time just to have that. And then immediately after that, I was like, that's a really bad thought, Kel. That's not okay. So, yeah, it just gives you that feeling, and that initial like 20 to 30 minutes of that buzz is what we remember. We don't remember all those other times when we're like, kind of like glassy-eyed and just repeating ourselves.
And it doesn't even work like that. Like, even if we could just take like 5 sips of beer like, it just doesn't work like that, but we have these ideas, and we grasp onto just that little bit of relief. Yeah, it's so insidious in that way. And I think specifically for that, like the buzz, I think that's one of the hardest things for people to come to terms with, is like, well, where am I going to get that buzz? Where am I going to feel that feeling,
Yeah.
And they're like, people would be like, pour a cup of tea. And you're like, okay, I call BS on that, because that's not going to happen.
Yeah. Okay, caffeine has its benefits, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, caffeine is great. I ate lots and lots of gummy bears in the early days.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the same. And I think that for me, at least, I had to just really be real about that. And kind of what I guess now I would say would be like the net effect of it. So that looks like, okay, so there is that buzz for 20 minutes. But what does that cost me? And it was kind of that visual of like, okay, alcohol will pick me up, but like over time, it pushes me down further than it picked me up. So then when it picks me up again, I'm lower than when I started before I was drinking.
Right.
And so like alcohol will pick me up, but never as far up as it kicked me down in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
At
And
the
it is that like
slope.
law of diminishing returns, I guess is the technical word for it, where like you really, and then you want to do it more because you're actually lower, like your baseline is lower. Like you talk about set points, right? Like emotional set points or weight set points or whatever set points. Like the act of drinking is lowering your set point of well-being. And you drink more to try to get back up because it's very deceptive because you have this set point of well-being. Then you have a drink and it spikes you above it for 20 minutes, but then it lowers the whole thing, right? And so you actually feel worse after those 20 minutes, but then you don't connect those things in your brain because who would? So you think, oh, another drink's going to be the answer. Right. And then it spikes you up and then it goes back down. And then the next day you're lowered overall. Because you actually are withdrawing a little bit from the alcohol you had before, and then that perpetuates and perpetuates. And so I think one thing that people notice over time, and I think it does take time, like to get away from it, really rejig kind of your thinking, is that they're like, wow, my normal well-being is like better than it was. And I noticed it like you in anxiety, because like the anxiety that was just constant started to lessen, or I started to have moments. I remember being in a position where literally I felt anxious most of the time, you know, and then now being in a position where, yeah, I have anxiety, but it's some of the time on occasion. It's not a way of life. It's not a constant, which it was before.
And anxiety is it's a normal emotion, and it's linked to fear, which, you know, kind of tells you that there's something going on that you need to address. So it's not like anyone's ever going to get rid of anxiety. It's just like, you know, I can handle, I'm in the middle of moving, there's a global pandemic, I'm going through a breakup, like all this stuff, I'm still working, blah, blah, blah. You know, like, I'm okay. Like I would have been a lot more of a mess. And I know some of my close friends are like, they're drinking a lot more than they normally would, you know, during this whole thing. But yeah, that's so interesting, because you don't realize that sort of insidious onset of alcohol, either through the course of a night or just overall in like your drinking career, if you will. You don't notice that. It's like the frog in the frying pan kind of a thing. And until you stop and you step away, I'm like, oh my God, I didn't realize how much it was affecting things, from anxiety to just general overall well-being of, I'm usually a pretty upbeat person. I'm pretty resilient, but it would make me really grumpy. You know, it's just, there's so many things now that I have more time to enjoy. I think drinking kind of almost just squashes any kind of mindfulness and gratefulness that you might have a little bit. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but I mean, you can still be thankful of things when you're drunk, but you know, I just think that clarity is gone. So really realizing, you know, that how that really affects you. It affects so many things. Even just like my eyes are clear physically, emotionally, mentally. It's been really good. So yeah.
That's so awesome. Yeah. Eyes, skin, teeth, like just people are like, wow, what are you doing? Did you lose weight? Or, you know, I'm like, no, I just, you know, it's just different. Like, I just feel like I think there's just like more life in my life, really. And that doesn't mean that everything's all up all the time. It just means that everything's more everything. Everything is more.
Yeah. I mean, life still has ups and downs, of course. But yeah, I forgot what I was going to say, actually. I'm sorry.
Oh, no problem. But yeah, physically and from a vanity standpoint, it's definitely a huge, huge plus, which is great.
Definitely. Yeah, and I get nervous, like, well, I haven't been able to go out a whole lot, but before this whole global pandemic, I was able to go out and, you know, have just like a soda or a ginger beer, or like I get something fancy to kind of take the place of alcohol. Cause like, really, if I could have anything in my hand and I would drink it, you know, it doesn't have to be like a poisonous, you know, alcoholic beverage. So I've been kind of experimenting with different things. Like I'll get pomegranate juice, which has a ton of antioxidants, and I'll put it in a nice wine glass, and I'll have like you know, dinner with that. And maybe some people would get freaked out by that, but I don't know. It just makes me feel fancy. So,
Yeah, I feel like it's totally what works for you. You know what I mean? Like, I think that part of the whole thing is all the glasses and the fanciness about it and the whole ambiance. I recently came across a new like mocktail type thing. It's called Kin Euphorics or something. And I was like, wow, this presentation of this is like top notch. It's like one of the best I've ever seen, from just bringing all that kind of, I don't know, that whatever it's called, the kind of allure,
the branding and marketing.
Yeah, the branding and the allure and the like, this is fun and sexy and interesting.
Yeah.
But doing it in a way that's healthy, you know? So it's like you get the best of both worlds because there's no alcohol in it. It's like, oh, that's really cool. I haven't actually tried it, but I was like, that's really neat. I really think that like I've not seen a brand do that yet. And it's just really impressive, but I totally understand that for sure.
That's really cool. Yeah.
Well, how was it? I guess it's kind of a weird time to ask this, but how's it been socially?
Pretty good, actually. I'm just really honest. I'm a very honest person. I'm just like, I just lay it all out there. So, you know, just kind of getting to know different people. Cause after the breakup, you know, like that was my life. So, you know, I just need to kind of build back my life back up. So I've been able to go out, and my friends have been really supportive, which is good. I don't really have anyone that I was like a drinking buddy with necessarily, so I feel lucky for that. Because drinking wasn't like my entire life, you know. It's not like I was a bartender and I was drinking like every day, all the time. So yeah, it's been pretty good. Like I do get some cravings sometimes if I think about really good New England IPA. But and like going out to like a brewery, which we can't do right now, but that's going to be a little tricky. But like I said, like my friends are all really supportive. And yeah, it's just, I have more fun too. I think, I just feel kind of a little more free, you know, like I know I'm in more control of myself. Like when you drink, and like I said, it doesn't take a lot for me to probably get to 0.08, but, yeah, I just would feel, like I'm not in control of myself, you know, and then I would do something inevitably kind of silly or stupid. Yeah.
So let me ask you kind of the question that I sort of wrap up with, but if you were going to go back and talk to yourself, the self that was, you know, kind of in the midst of it, doing stuff that she just didn't even remember, much less wanted to be doing, what would you tell her about how life is now?
Yeah. I knew you were going to ask this too, because I've listened to like a ton of your podcasts and I'm still like, nerd. So it's not nearly as bad. In fact, it's a lot better than I ever thought. You know, obviously there's difficult times, but what I was drinking to kind of numb were the problems that drinking was creating, to kind of break it down simply. So it was actually a lot bigger of a factor in my life than I ever realized. And I wish I could take it all back, and still be with the guy that I was with. But just that, like, you don't have to do this. Like, you don't have to get in this repeated cycle. Like, just take that leap of faith. It's really not that bad. It's pretty awesome. It's fine. Like, alcohol plays such a small part in our lives, as far as that, how should I say this? It's an easier thing to give up. Even it seems like it's a big deal, but it actually really isn't that big of a deal. Like, you can go out and you can do all the things that you want to do. You can go to shows, you can do all of that stuff, but you don't have to drink. So I was thinking, like, oh my God, I can't have like a party, and I can't go to parties, and I can't go to barbecues, and I can't you know, like all the things that I did when I was drinking, I was like, oh, I can't do this anymore. But like you can, it's just a different mindset. So I think that was one of the things with me. I was like, well, I can't quit because then I'm not like, it seemed like such a big part of my life, but there's so much more to it. And you actually end up having more fun. Throw a little cannabis in there and you're fine.
Yeah. And more fun and more time. And I think that's so true, is like alcohol, it is really a small thing, but we can make it the biggest thing. And I guess we can do that with anything, but we just tend to, as a culture, do that with alcohol more than most things.
Yeah.
But then if we can, you know, just shift our mindset to look at it, it can become a really super small thing again. And it just is a matter of like what lens you're looking through.
Yeah. And I love that. So I did the AA thing, and how a lot of people that are turned off by it don't like the I'm powerless and all of that. And I think it's good in a lot of ways. And once we can go to meetings again, I'll probably go to some of them. But I love some of these alternative ways, like your book and your school of thought of just like taking your power back, you know. I'm like, yeah, it's okay. You can be around it and maybe even have a drink, but like just be aware of what you're doing and what it's doing to you. Yeah. So, yeah. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you so much, Kelly. It's really been fun to get to know you, and good luck with the move and everything else.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye.
Okay, bye. Hi, I'm so excited, you guys, because we are just about to start another live alcohol experiment. And if you do not know about the alcohol experiment, you need to literally drop everything right now and go to thisnakedmind.com/LAE. That's LAE for live alcohol experiment. And here's the thing. This 30-day challenge is designed to interrupt your patterns and put you back in touch with the best version of you. You know, it's that version that's living the most joyful life. That version that doesn't need alcohol to relax or have a good time, and that version that's having more fun and is more peaceful than ever. Again, it's a 30-day challenge. It's live. It's starting on the 1st, so hurry up. Go to thisnakedmind.com/LAE. And as always, rate, review, and subscribe to this podcast, as it truly helps the message reach somebody who might need to hear it today.